Right, it's time to have a proper look around my new Skoda Favorit. So I thought it might be fun to take you with me as I do something quite scary, and that's check the fluid levels. If I can work out how to open the bonnet. There we go. Oh, hold on a minute, you just go up there while I get the stand in place. Try and do that without hooking the camera into it. Right, so we're now going to check the levels, and the good news is the coolant level is bang on max, so that's good. These engines are well known for head gasket failure, but being a simple overhead valve engine, it's not the end of the world. We've got a new temperature sender fitted there. Here, focus gimbal. I guess to try and cure the fact that it's clearly overreading to a massive degree, but that has not worked. Let's have a look in the oil filler if I can get it out. Oh yes, yeah, the previous owner did say you get a bit of mayo in the petrol cap, and that certainly seems to be true. I'll have to keep an eye on the situation. It's not like the Nissan Bluebird where the entire oil system was full of icky mayo. Let's get the dipstick out, which just drops into the back of the engine into a hole, and yeah, I think I need to wipe that, so let's go and find something to wipe it with. Right, I've now wiped the dipstick. Car's not really on the level, but it'll have to do. And that seems entirely dry. I'm going to say that's not ideal. I think topping the oil up might be a priority today before I even try and start the engine. But look in here at how clean it all is. I mean, everyone's going on about how mad I am. Notice the remote servo with a nice cross linkage going on. It's just like a Golf. But yeah, it's all remarkably good. Keeping it remarkably good will be a challenge, and I fully anticipate that. But yeah, it's in lovely, lovely condition. So regardless of what the mileage is, and we have absolutely no idea because the odometer doesn't work, it's not actually a bad car. It has had paint. The bottom of the doors have been painted, and clearly not well enough. And that's further evidenced here where there's been some joyously dreadful, just correct my language there, masking going on. And that happened in 2016, which I know because I've got a massive amount of... Ooh, sorry gimbal, I just leant on the wire and now I've upset it. I've got masses of history, so many invoices. Look at this. This was a service carried out in October last year. £535. It's had both calipers, it's had new brake lines up the front, new struts at the front, and their original Skoda as well. I think you can still see the stickers on them. Yeah, there you go, it's a sticker on the original sign. But look, you know, it's all solid in here. Many Skodas are not solid. Fair bit of overspray going on because I think it's had a sill. It certainly had it repaired. It's obviously had a bit of a wallop on that bottom end, but it's an awful lot better than you think it is my conclusion. Oh, obviously we've got the hub nut sticker in place, available on the website for £2.50 each, plus postage. But if I open up the boot again, I just need to demonstrate a brilliant feature. I didn't think the interior light was working, but you see it doesn't work. But that's because you have to have the side lights on. If the side lights are on, then you can turn the boot light on and off. Oh, there we go, yeah. It comes on automatically if you just wave your hand near it. If you haven't got the rear lights on, oh, bloody mic cable's getting caught again. Yeah, you can't have the light on. I mean, that's quite hopeless, I think, in a way. I don't know why on earth you would do that, but I'll turn those off before I forget. So we've got lots of faded plastic going on, and lots of oil on me. but this can all be smartened up. I'm sure I can do something better on the seats as well. It's odd how they seem to have torn. So despite what we think is probably a low mileage, and again, you know, the steering wheel rim isn't too shiny. I mean, my gut feel is 20 or 30,000 miles on this car. But why do people use this white grease? I mean, it's a sign of regular attention, but all the doors creak and groan. I think that white grease is just entirely wrong for this application. You want something much more oily, because this stuff just dries and then doors end up making horrible noises when you try and open them. So yeah, all needs sorting out. Oh, I have got a cup holder in my Skoda. Universal clip man. Well, that's good to know. So yeah, loads and loads of history, covering lots and lots of works. Things like, you know, the brake fluid being replaced at intervals. Stuff you just don't see on cars. So a bit of cleaning up, and this old girl should be in very fine fettle. I mean, don't you love the fact it's got rear head restraints? How decadent is that? Well, there we go. That's the engine topped up with oil again. I feel a bit stupid now. And despite my assertion that I'd probably got the 54 brake horsepower, no, it is the 67 bhp. Yeah, that's a bit strange, but it feels like it hasn't got any. Look, there's a record of the brake fluid check. No record of anything else. But good to know what my wheel nut torque should be. It's even got the headlamp alignment settings in here. But yeah, we shall keep an eye on the oil level going forward. I did have a look before I set off. I did think it was a little low, but in a sort of meh, that'll be alright, I'll get me home sort of a way. So that's probably my own stupid fault. Let's just check the engine is okay. I think that might not be a bad idea. We shall apply the handbrake. We shall put some neutrals in place. We shall do the noodle with the immobilizer over there, because desirable car. There's our ignition. Is it just me, or does that sound a bit more tappy than it did? Well, they've been an overhead valve engine anyway. They can be a bit tappy. So yeah, we shall monitor the situation. I do like the indicators. A very irregular flash. I like an irregular flash. You can get flasher relays for the 2CVs that have a regular flash, and I refuse to use them. Marvellous. And after a good soaking in dew and frost and stuff, it looks like I've polished it. This is the potential of this car. She could be that shiny. So yeah, work to do. Badges to refit. So the Skoda Favorit was conceived by Skoda before the Volkswagen era, and styled by Bertoni of Italy. But my understanding is that Bertoni was told to use these headlamps, and I don't know the full truth of that matter, but I think it's the headlamps that really give this car that sort of Eastern Bloc look. They're one of the most distinctive features. I mean, they're huge. Glass lenses, and good, nice and powerful and effective as well. We walk around the back. One of the interesting things to note here is that the tailgate is apparently the same as the hatchback. They've just moved it backwards to create this state, and the body shells even have an extra bit welded in to lengthen them. Mine came with the debadged option, as in the previous owner had taken the badges off. I've now removed all the remnants. I'm going to mop this car to try and get it back to red again, and look, it looks like it's crying tears of blood, but it's not. That's just the water making the pink turn red again, and I want the whole car to be that red. Let's take a look under the bonnet. Actually, first of all, let's take a look inside at the lovely interior and the door check strap that won't keep the door open. You'll see we're fully keep fit on all of the controls. So a nice simple dashboard. You've got push buttons for the lights. So that one's for side lights, that one's for headlamps, hazards, heated rear window, and over here a rear fog light, possibly two, I've not checked, but also blanking plugs. One of those would have been for the front spotlights you got on the GLXi, but this is a mere LXi. But because it has fuel injection, I get a rev counter, so there's some luxury. Ignore the mileage. You see it has clicked up 1 mile since I bought this car, about 260 miles ago. The odometers often break on these cars, so always take the mileage with a pinch of salt. Down here we've got the nice simple heater controls. The fan works on the same speed on all settings, so I must have a resistor problem to sort out. But that's fine, because when you're driving along you get so much air coming through all the vents anyway, you don't really miss the power. It's only when you're stopped you have to put it on, so that's good. It's got an upgrade, because I don't think the LXi originally came with a stereo at all. This has got a Sony cassette player pull-out unit, which unless I pull it out keeps on coming permanently on, so someone hasn't wired that correctly. We've got a 5-speed gearbox. And I get a bit confused because some people say the gearbox was designed by Porsche, some people say the front suspension and engine mounts were designed by Porsche, some say the rear suspension was designed by Porsche. But it's fair to say that Porsche did have a hand in some of the engineering of this car. And I mean, the interior is not exactly high quality. You look at the joints and everything, and it's all a bit messy and random, but it doesn't actually rattle very much when you're driving along, so that's quite good, I think. And I don't wish to show off, but my glove box does actually still work. Apparently they break very, very often. And there's the mortal remains of yet another phone mount that's broken. Ugh. One thing I do like, the interior mirror is actually attached to the roof. And despite that, it doesn't vibrate very much. So that's always good. I'm going to show off my Tesla clock. That's Tesla as in a Czech company that was state owned, an electronics giant effectively, but nonetheless it's a nice clock. From the driver's seat, very difficult to see. This is the driver's view, that's not ideal, but you can see I get a lovely view out the rear window. This is one of those cars where the rear mirror actually matches the shape of the rear window, and I appreciate that because you don't get that on all cars. One of my favourite things is probably the intermittent wipers. I've sussed out the intermittent wipers now. If you put them on, you have to accept that it'll do a random number of wipes, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, before the relay clicks, and then they go into the intermittent setting. So there you go, that's slightly peculiar. All good fun. So yeah, the wiper stalk is 2 speeds up. Forward is forward is to operate the rear wiper, thusly. Got some serious speed on it, that rear wiper, and backwards towards me makes it wash. So there you go. What I also like is the stalks. No one ever does this, do they? If you go around the back, they're not finished on the back, they're just the open mouldings. You wouldn't see that on a Western car. So out of sight, out of mind. But of course it isn't out of touch, because you're always putting your hand on the back of these stalks. So yeah, sneaky, but a bit cheap. And the stalks do go a bit flaky with time. You can probably see that one's faded quite badly. I've actually treated this one to some vinyl and rubber gel, which improved its looks for about 5 seconds. Anyway, we shan't sit here with the ignition on any longer. Let me go and open the bonnet, if I don't upset the gimbal doing so. So yeah, the engine is a 67 brake horsepower 1.3 litre unit. It's nothing to do with Volkswagen, it's Skoda's own engine. It's the development of Skoda's long line of 4-cylinder engines with wet liners going back to the 1000 MB of 1963 or 4. and but by this time it's all aluminium, whereas previous generations were an alley block and quite pioneering construction on those as well, sort of pressure fed aluminium castings, but they had an iron head. But this later unit is all alloy, and you can see this particular example, it's all very clean under here, which backs up my assertion that it's probably fairly low mileage. So yeah, transverse engine, 5-speed gearbox driving the front wheels. In terms of rear space, headroom is a little tight, but plenty of leg room, even with the seat set for me. And yeah, lots of shoulder space. It's quite comfortable as well. And the rear seats all have head restraints, which you can adjust for height. I quite like these designs because if you've got a ponytail, as I sometimes do, the ponytail goes through the hole. I like that very much. There's a parcel shelf in the back. That's quite similar to a Citroen BX estate. So it means you've got to leave it at home if you know you're going to carry some big loads, or you've got to try and find somewhere to put it. And there's some monster speakers that aren't actually wired up. All good fun. Right, shall we actually go for a drive? First of all, I have to disable the immobiliser. And then we fire it up. Slightly clattery starter motor, something very Eastern Bloc about that. Right, it's gloomy all day, so side lights, headlights. No idea why Tesco put a cone there, but as I can drive past it, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So there's no power steering in the Favorit. It is all very keep fit. This is practically a gym on wheels. Some people are not very good at car parks, are they? There's no mist function on the wipers, so I have to turn them on and then off again. But the engine is, you know, it's an old school 8-valve overhead valve design, so it's a bit clattery, and yeah, the soundtrack is very old school. It's not all that dissimilar to, say, a Talbot Alpine. Lovely indicator sound, I like that a lot. People of Aberystwyth really do struggle with traffic lights. It's quite amusing. So I put the intermittent wipers on. Let's see how many wipes they do this time. 4 wipes, and then they settle down to the intermittent pattern. And you can adjust that. It is variable timing, so if that's too long I can turn it off. That should be a longer gap, and you still get 2 wipes. Around town it's certainly quite perky, and being an old school engine you don't have to rev it at all. All the grunt is in the middle of the rev range. It certainly picks up nicely from about 2,500 revs. But yeah, it's not exactly what you call VTEC-EO. But the gear change, there's quite a lot of space between the 3rd and 4th and the 5th gate, which is slightly annoying. It makes it difficult to snick between those gears. But it's very precise, so I certainly appreciate that. So here we are, under 2,000 revs in top gear going uphill, and it's fine. It's going to struggle now, it's going to a 40 zone, or will it? No, look at that. So as I was saying, the car was developed by Skoda. It had input from various people. Ricardo did some work on the engine to improve the efficiency of the cylinder head, and Porsche was involved in some aspects yet to be decided. At the front we've got a simple McPherson strut. At the rear we've got struts, but also a sort of torsion rear beam. I think that's meant to give a certain amount of anti-roll bar tendency, but it has no anti-roll bars at all. So as we shall see when we get to a roundabout, it does get a bit comedic in body roll terms. It's practically a 2CV. But noise levels are reasonable, the ride is pretty good, it gets a little bouncy at times. And the brakes are good. Let's see if we get a clear entry onto the roundabout and we can chuck her in a bit. Yes. Holy poly! Whoa. Bit understeery as well on these cheap tyres, but it's not bad. It actually feels pretty planted most of the time. Of course, I do occasionally forget it hasn't got power steering, but let's open her up. Now we're onto a faster road. Yeah, that is her opened up uphill. Sounding fraught. So I think it's fair to say it's not an engine that really wants to rev all that much. I think the red line kicks in at 5,500 revs, but I think that is pretty much all she's got to give. It certainly doesn't sound very pleasant if you extend it that much, so the best idea is to not extend it. But we're doing 60 miles an hour now, plenty of heat coming through the volcano heater. Even though I haven't got a fan running at the moment. And here comes some twisty bends. Still doing 60. Yeah. It really is okay. It's not a bad car, which is why I've been a bit surprised at the comments. Been some particularly unpleasant comments about this car. And I don't really understand why. I mean, all those old Skoda jokes, and they were never justified back in the day, really, because Skodas were reliable cars. They always came out very well in terms of customer satisfaction. They always won their class on the rallies. They were, good cars. This really isn't a bad car. It feels quite nicely engineered. It is leagues ahead of the mighty Dacia, which is my other car in 1990, well, not my car anymore, but one I have plenty of experience of, having driven back from Romania. If you haven't seen that series yet, do go and check it out. But now belongs to my co-driver, which is good, because I'd hate to be parted from that car entirely. But it's actually quite quiet as well, so it feels a lot more refined than you might expect. It isn't a car that begs you to cane it, but you can drive along at a merry old pace quite happily. Surely that's all you want in a car, really. The steering just feels nice. I used to have a Peugeot 309 with a 1.3 litre engine, and that was the old Simca engine, and that wasn't a very nice engine. I could never quite get it running right. And the steering was also terrible, because the weight used to vary so much depending on where you were when you were turning it. This is much more concise. It's really quite pleasant. The only problem is there's nowhere for my clutch foot to rest other than under the pedal, which is not ideal. But given how cheap these cars were, I think this car cost £6,300 in 1994. A lot cheaper than much of the Western competition. I mean, these were outrageous value, really. If you wanted a brand new car that was actually decent, these offered you everything you wanted. Skoda was bought by Volkswagen, and some of that influence is on this car in terms of, I think the quality is probably turned up a notch, and we got the Bosch fuel injection, which, let's face it, is necessary if you're going to be running a catalytic converter. But yeah, where was I? I've slightly lost my train of thought there as we come into a 30 zone, making sure there's no police about anywhere, although we are obeying the speed limit. But even compared to other Eastern Bloc rivals, the Favorit was a long way ahead. The Lada Samara was the Russian answer to the Favorit, and they just weren't very good, especially as they took longer to adopt fuel injection, so they persisted with trying to make a carburettor work with a catalytic converter. Not easy. But yeah, what I was trying to say was that a lot of people have said, oh, is that a Volkswagen engine? It isn't, it's Skoda's own. But they did revise the Favorit and turn it into the Felicia, or however you're meant to pronounce it. Sorry, Romanians? Czech Republic people. Czechs, they're the ones. I'm sorry for butchering your language with my terrible pronunciation. But the Felicia, as we call it here in the UK, was had a lot more Volkswagen engineering. You could even specify it with a fairly dreadful 1.6 litre Volkswagen engine, or a 1.9 diesel if you really wanted to lose the will to live. But I briefly worked at a Skoda dealership cleaning cars as a school child on a Saturday, and I would clean the Favorits as well as some Daihatsu models, and I just fell in love with the shape of them. I think they look absolutely fantastic. I know the rear lamp clusters look a bit simple with their rather chunky appearance, but I like that. I think that's all good. Oh no, we really have got the roads to ourselves. We can indulge a bit. There are times it does just wobble around a bit too much, and it can't be tyre dampers because it's had replacements and they're genuine Skoda as well. They've still got stickers on, but it certainly turns in really nicely. It's not the best car I've ever driven quickly along this road, but it certainly isn't the worst. One day I look forward to telling you what the economy is. I think it should be able to do mid to high 40s, but with no working odometer, I can't really confirm or deny that. Oh, things moving around in the glove box. Must be generating some G-force. So there you go. I think the Skoda Favorit is a very deserving, very pleasant car, and I'm having quite a lot of fun on this road. I think you should definitely look at the Favorit with a more open mind if you're thinking this is a dreadful old Eastern Bloc lump of rubbish. It just isn't. And if you already like the Favorit, then good on you. So I shall just say thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go. Don't forget you can find merchandise and some new designs as well as fresh stocks of beanie hats at our Hubnut store. Visit hubnut.org to find your way to that. And I shall see you in a future video. Farewell!